Hey everybody, welcome to a little bit of woo woo. I'm your host Jill Thomas, and I've got my amazing guest, Mara Clear Spring Cook, is going to talk about what's going on astrologically. Because I know there's a lot of stuff going on. I know it's stuff going on with the new moon, which is August 19th, and of course we're in the middle of Mercury retrograde, August 15th and 14th and 15th. And this is being recorded on August 15th at 10:30 Pacific. So just to let you know, if something happens in between when we record it, when you see it, that's what time we recorded it. So Mara, tell us what's going on. What's kind of generally the sense of what we need to be looking out for?
Well, I just want to tell you, it's so odd. We did not plan this, folks. But at 10:29 this morning, the war god Mars squared the boss, the authoritarian Saturn. So right there, if you think of a square, that's two things coming in at a right angle. That's energies colliding. So I wouldn't be surprised if we get off this podcast and we find out that there's been some world event of aggression. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I was going to say, I guess the square is probably not a good thing. I don't,
Well, good, bad,
it's all relative, right?
We need things to move. And sometimes the most efficient way to move something is to apply the greatest force, which is a square. So it's not clean, it's not pretty sometimes. And I'm not saying I'm in favor of any kind of conflict.
Of course not. No, that's not what we're hearing.
But if you're like stuck in a job that you don't like, but you refuse to quit, and then all of a sudden they reorganize and you get laid off, that's a square.
Ooh, yeah, okay.
See what I mean?
I see what you're saying.
And then you go get a better job, or maybe you got laid off, so you got a bonus. So you could go retrain on something else, have a much better career. So squares can do good things, but I'm worried about today.
Oh, I know. Anecdotally, I will say that I've been laid off a few times, and every time I've always ended up with more money. I've always ended up with a respectable severance, and it's always ended up being a good thing. So, as awful as it sounds in the moment, it often ends up being much better situation later on. But you're concerned about world events. Would you say now, when you're saying world events, are we talking about Earth? Because there's been a lot of earthquakes and goodness, another hurricane coming. Are we talking about conflict events with humans or with Earth or with both?
All of it.
All of it.
It's all. If when I listen to some of the lifetime astrologers, people have been in this for decades. They talk about how the month of August, and especially this week that we're in, it's off the charts as far as activating energies. You can look at it from an elemental perspective. A lot of fires have been lit, and they're in a lot of arenas. So when I talk about earth changes, yes, all of the things, the volcanoes, the earthquakes, the hurricanes, and even interesting radio. Oh, that crosses over into electronics, but continued radio interference and blackouts from solar flares. We're in a quiet moment right now. I'm not even going to say a whole day. I'm just going to say we're in a quiet moment with flares. But I will bet you dollars to donuts, there's an old phrase, that on the new moon on the 19th of August, there's going to be an X flare. There's going to be another wave of energetic stimulation in the outer atmosphere that affects all us little beings here on the planet.
So what's the effect?
Well, it's multi-layered. When we're talking about communications, we have, all the planets are archetypal forces, and they bring a certain personality to the stage of that we're watching, this drama of life. And so Uranus is the planet of this extreme change and shift and unpredictable upsets and disruption. Uranus is currently being positioned as a pivotal point, a square, between the sun and the moon on August 19. So that means the first day of the Democratic National Convention is occurring on a full moon. That's right. With several T-squares. T-squares are where you've got multiple planets involved in a square. And so this disruption can happen at all these different levels. We can have crazy weather, we can have crazy people, domestic and foreign, crazy people. I have a lot of thoughts about what could be cooking for this new moon that people would relate to from so many different places of life. So in a general sense, I mean, I know you've got predictions too, right?
Yeah, I do. I don't, I don't get dates like you do with the astrology. I mean, I get a sense of it's whether it's sooner or later. To me, it's always relative. Okay, so if it's in my aura closer, that means it's sooner, and I kind of have a sense time wise. And of course, if I see a picture of something happening and there's snow on the ground, I know it's not happening in July. So that's kind of, but that's what's nice about having someone like you on, is because you kind of give dates to things, because the astrology does give some sense of time, which is a little harder for most psychics to come up with.
Oh yeah, that's a really good point. And it's not like astrology predicts things necessarily so much as it backs it up later. So, and also the things I'm talking about involve what's called the outer planets. All right. So these are the big guys, Jupiter and Saturn, but also further out, Neptune and Uranus and Pluto. Yeah, I still think of Pluto as a planet, and in astrology we think of Pluto as a planet. And those planets move more slowly around the sun. So that means they have more gravitas, they have more energy, they have more power, so they have a longer effect. So yeah, I'm giving you a date, August 19. But let's go back to July. Let's go back to July. Let's see, what date? July 13. So there was a campaign rally. and someone took a shot at Trump, right? Just and killed people in the. I mean, it's just
It's so
horrible what
sad.
happened.
So sad. Oh
It
my
was
gosh.
absolutely horrible. And on that same day, I'm trying to find my note where I wrote this down. 2 days after that was the start of the Republican National Convention. And that was when Mars conjuncted Uranus, the planet of all this craziness, right? So when we have this, is it conjunction or a square? Let me look real quick here. Does it matter? Yeah, it was a conjunction. It was a conjunction. So what we have going on is energy that's still rippling out from there, Jill, and it's rippling right into the 19th. Think of the 19th as the day that the pebbles getting dropped in the pond, but the ripples go forward in time as well as backward in time. So we're feeling them right now. So the 19th is a day where a lot of people can feel very conflicted. A lot of rage and anger can be brought to the surface. That's a day that, and the days around it, where strange and weird stuff's going to happen. I can't even begin to predict what it would be, but really weird, strange things. And I very much hope that the light side of all of this can come up as well as the shadow side. Like I was saying, you may get laid off, but then you end up getting some sort of a package deal where you get retrained and you end up in a better job. So I'm hoping whatever happens, that's the kind of result that we get.
So when you're looking at this chaotic energy and all of this stuff happening on the 19th and all this rage and just different sorts of, I think of it as a gumbo of energy of different things.
Yeah.
Would this be a good time for if you're looking for inspiration, a new idea? Because I'm hearing clients are like, I suddenly out of the blue got this idea. I suddenly out of the blue got this insight, or this thing hit me, or I just realized something amazing. And I wonder if that's kind of part of that energy that you're talking about on the 19th, because I seem to be hearing a lot from my reading clients now.
Especially yesterday it peaked.
Okay.
Because Mars conjuncted Jupiter yesterday in Gemini. So Gemini is the sign of all these magnified and multi-layered thoughts and ideas and inspiration, and let's do everything all at once. And Mars is activating. See, that we say a war god because Mars is a war god, but also that's activation. That's the yang principle. Do something. And Jupiter is like, okay, let's make it bigger. Wait, let's make it bigger. Let's make it bigger. And Jupiter in Gemini is extremely excited and very much wants to share all of these great, PowerPoints and power pills and all these ways to just juice it up, juice it up, juice it up. So yes, if anybody's been sitting on the seed of their own soul path and is ready to actually germinate that seed, to plant it and let it grow, yes, that's being activated right now. I'm not saying go out and start it. Maybe you don't want to do that. We're in the middle of a Mercury retrograde, right? And it's not over for a little bit still, but you can do all your research, get everything written down, line your ducks in a row, ask your friends, ask people who are qualified to give a good answer. I love it when people have a great idea, Jill. You know people who do this. And then they go and they tell the friend who always poo-poos things or the parent who never approves. And they're like, okay, I'm not going to try. You know people like that.
Or the person, yeah, I mean, I know exactly. And they've got a list of all of the, I hear about this a lot with people with big families. And I'm sure some of you guys listening can relate to this. They've had cousins or uncles who've tried it and it failed. And you get a whole list of how it failed, particularly with entrepreneurship. But it's never exactly the same. It's like they started a bookstore. Yeah, but they started a bookstore in the 80s. Or, I mean, it's just like the circumstances aren't the same. And this person really just wants to sell books on Amazon. That's not exactly the same thing right now. I love how you're describing that, though. And I'm seeing, tell me if there's anything with relationships, because I am getting a lot of reading clients right now or starting new relationships with new people and new situations and new inspirations. Is that part of this energy, or is that just sort of kind of the random thing that always happens?
Well, that's an interesting question to ask. And as I look at the chart for the new moon, we do have, what could I say about that? Well, okay, so here's this interesting thing that's going on. So Neptune is the planet of what I call ascension or addiction. And, that's how a relationship can make you feel. Either you're just ecstatically in love and walking on air, or you're in a terrible energy imbalance and you want more, or they're trying to suck more energy out of you, right? That's like two polar opposites of a relationship spectrum. So here's Neptune, and they're considered the higher frequency of the divine feminine, like the spiritual frequency of the yin principle. And Neptune is at the very end of Pisces, its home sign. And what that means is it is grinding away on the final point of shadow. So because when you come to the end of a sign, you're in that shadow point where it's a little bit weaker. So Neptune's getting ready to turn retrograde on that point. So we're getting a chance to kind of see what are our shadows. So I would caution anybody who's getting into a new relationship, take a look, hon, because is it new or is it a different person? Same dream. Something
that's a
to
good
look
point.
at. Something to look at.
Very,
and then
very good point.
Opposite of that, Neptune's in Pisces. And so I'm looking at this chart, and opposite of that is in a very loose orb, dark moon Lilith. Okay, so she's the dark feminine. She's in Libra, the sign of relationships. So I would say, again, that I would have caution around new relationships forming during this retrograde period, especially since Venus is going to be opposite Saturn. So, and that will be very close to, oh no, it's on the new moon. So Venus, she's us, right? She's the gal. She's the feminine inside of anyone, male, female, whatever. When she's opposite Saturn, I mean, she wants to exude love, and she's going to be in Virgo, so it's going to be a very specific type of love, and it's going to be a grounded, earthy. You got to check all the boxes, love. Saturn's on the other side saying, "There's a slow down. Let's think about this. This is really a good time to fall in love. You always make mistakes. You know what I mean? like Saturn's right on the other side of all that. So again, if it's really love, it'll make it through this phase, but there's just a real good chance of us pulling the wool over our own eyes. So I would just go slow. That's the best thing. Go slow.
That's always good advice. I love that. Don't start scribbling his last name on your notebook just yet. make sure you get to know them a little bit better, particularly during a retrograde. That's very sensible advice. I'm kind of, there's something you're talking about that I want to dig into a little bit deeper. I'm hearing there's a lot of feminine energy. I'm hearing shadow with Lilith, and I'm thinking about the 19th, the birthday of the Democratic Party. Does that mean there's going to be a lot of issues around women's issues or women's conversations during this convention? Is that kind of part of it, or am I just making something that doesn't really exist?
It's a big part of it. It's a big part of it. I, being a woman, I very much can feel, I made a little video I called The Goddess Rising. I could just feel this energy moving. And instead of being oppressed, what if we are released? We have an understanding of how feminine people are treated in our current society. And the United States is a leader. That just is it. The whole world looks to us as we struggle through incredibly tough situations, right? And so I think that this popularity that Kamala has, and this, you can just see behind her like this wave of women ready to come in and say, okay, honey, you made a mess, let's go clean this all up. You know what I'm saying? So I think yes, I think there's a big quality to that. How does this feminine energy navigate these very patriarchal problems?
Interesting. So you're saying this could be a big part of the conversation around the Democratic National Party, which you sort of expected anyway, because the Roe v. Wade was going to be something that the Democratic Party is going to talk about quite a bit.
Well, I think I don't want to be like, I don't know if this is on topic or off topic, probably on topic. And I don't know if we should make just a separate predictions video, because this one's getting long here, but I think what's going to happen is my view, Sunday or Monday, Trump, the Republican dudes.
We know who he is. Yes.
Yeah, we know who he is. Right. We see you. We see what you're doing. We see you. He's going to come up with some crazy stuff about walls or Kamala or both. And he's digging up whatever dirt he can create. I think we're going to hear about wild stories of inappropriate behavior and actions. I think so. It doesn't matter if it's a lie. Once you throw that mud on the wall, it's never quite the same. And I think he just can't stand it. And I think he's gonna come up with something that is going to be he's going to try to grandstand and pull the energy back onto him. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, I know exactly what you mean. Isn't that kind of classic narcissistic behavior though? And I'm not, hey, look guys, I personally think that most politicians are narcissists on both sides. I'm just going to say that. But that classic back to me, I want the attention to be back on me thing. And that is a tactic also in the middle of this party that's supposed to be the Democrats party. Wanting to bring the attention back to himself would be a tactic he might try. And I absolutely can believe that one. In fact, I would be very surprised if that didn't happen, but I like that you said it's going to be Sunday. So.
Yeah. Well, Sunday or Monday. I think he'll try to preempt, to try to get the news cycle to focus on him. I also am concerned about the protests. Mm-hmm. I think there's a contributing factor to make them less organic and more pumped up by people who would benefit from that. Is that a kind way of saying the whole thing there?
I think we know what you're talking about. And I 100% agree with that. I have seen some very questionable protests with some very specific signage that I just don't see the people I live in the city of Ashland, Oregon. I just can't see the people in the city of Ashland writing such anti-Semitic signage that looked like it was made a long time ago. And posting it around a town square that's mostly, peaceful. So I know what you're talking about.
Orchestrated protests, scripted. Yeah. And I think that I think there will be an issue around security. There might be like a surprise there. I don't see anything really awful happening so much as it being, again, disruptive, that Uranus factor, disruption before, during, after. Right now, we're in the flow right now, peaks right around the new moon time. And then it will gently subside afterwards. But, honestly, these are big ripples in the world pond. And there's several stones being dropped into it at the same time. So it's a complicated interplay of energies.
Okay. Yeah, I think we'll definitely maybe just schedule time to do a little predictions video for that, because I love what you're talking about. And I love talking about the energy of it, because the energy is something, I know it doesn't sound like we're giving real specific answers here, but now you can sort of understand what kind of thing to look for, for yourself. If there's a lot of crazy road rage, a lot of crazy incidents at stores, now oh, that's what's going on. So it's just kind of playing a little more peaceful game.
Look at this. If you get presented with a situation that triggers you, it is a real opportunity to not give your energy away, because whoever is throwing those figurative sticks and stones at you, they want your attention. They are energy stealers and light blockers. So instead of stepping into it, step back. Don't play in that pond, that mud hole. Don't get dirty. Don't go there.
And that's really good advice for people's safety too. So what you're describing sounds to me like somebody comes at you and they're very aggressive around this time period, when you might normally, lean into it and fight back. It's, oh gosh, I'm really sorry. You're right. I shouldn't have done that. And just diffusing the situation and leaving sounds like a better approach. Live to fight another day kind of thing. Is that kind of what you're saying?
I think so. I don't think we want to add to the intensity. There's just so much intensity going on right now. We don't need to add to it. We want to kind of extract ourselves from it so we can observe and make sane choices.
Oh, I love it. Great advice. So any last little bits of advice? I'm definitely going to talk about how they can get a hold of you and how they can book private readings with you. Any last little bits of advice for this time period?
I think that for this full moon, it is a good time to see what's going on around you. But then remember, that might be distracting you from what's going on inside of you. The full moon puts full illumination. It lights up whatever might have been hidden. So I think it's a great time to kind of dig out those weeds of aggression and hostility, and you said it, narcissism that could be inside any of us. Kind of dig those weeds out, tend to your garden. And for those of us who like to be on those planes of connecting to the light, of being intuitive and empathic, shamanic, keep asking for those downloads, and because they're still pouring in, and take some time to work on interpreting them for yourself using whatever tools you normally like to use.
Love it, love it, love it. I love what you just said, because I do love the idea of people tuning in for themselves, figuring out what they want out of life, and using their own intuition to feel into the situation and what's true and what's not for them, not necessarily listening to what the news says. So I love that. So Mara, tell us how we can find you. I'm going to put obviously links in the description, but it's always nice to hear it. How can they find you?
Oh, and I just want to say, folks, thanks for reaching out to me. I've had people reach out to me from these and other videos that I've made, and that just like warms my heart. MaraClearSpring.com. That's my website, MaraClearSpring.com. And then if you go to Facebook or Instagram, just Mara Clearspring, just search me out. I'm there.
Love it, love it, love it. You've made it really easy, and I'll put a link in the description. So thanks, guys. If you got something out of this, go ahead and like and subscribe. That way you'll hear about future versions of this. And if you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the comments for future versions. And look forward to seeing you guys next time. Thanks so much for your support. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.